When the process server handed my daughter-in-law that legal envelope on my driveway, she froze like she'd seen a ghost. I didn't raise my voice. I just reminded her whose name was still on the deed. That was the day I took my life back. But trust me, that was only the beginning. My name is Eudora Grayson, and I've been living in this house on the east side of Savannah since 1989. I paid off every penny myself after my husband passed. The porch still creaks in the same spot it did when Ronald Reagan was in office, and the kitchen smells like cornbread and pride. So when my son Rafe called last Thursday and said, "Mama, we're just coming by to check on you," I knew there was a catch. Folks don't say check on you unless they've already decided you need checking. I cooked like I always do. Pot roast, green beans with turkey neck, and a skillet of cornbread. That's not weakness. That's proof. I set the table for 3. But 4 more walked in behind them. Rafe, his wife Malis, and right behind her, Malis's parents, Indira and Jethro Lorne, smiling like company that forgot to call first. The air in that doorway went tight. I smiled anyway, because my mama taught me, never let a guest see you thrown. We sat down, and before the first bite, Malis said, "Did you take your pills, Eudora? I can sort them out for you in one of those weekly boxes." I looked at her calm. "Baby, I've been sorting my own pills since Reagan, and I still know what day it is." Rafe just stared at his plate. That half-smile children use when they're ashamed of their parents instead of their spouse. That stung deeper than her words. Indira poked her fork at her green beans like they were foreign food. "Gas stove, huh? Can be tricky at your age," she said, glancing around like she was casing the joint. "How old is that thing?" I answered polite. But my pulse thudded. They weren't visiting, they were assessing. Every polite comment was a box checked on some mental list. Can she live alone? Is she safe? That's how folks steal lives with paperwork, not guns. After dinner, I expected Rafe to reach for the dishes, maybe thank me. Instead, Malis stood up, wiped her hands on a napkin, and said, "Mom, let me show them the bedrooms." Mom. She calls me that when she wants to sound caring. She waved Indira and Jethro down my hallway like she owned a key. I stood in my kitchen holding a dish towel, listening to her voice drift through my home. "This front room gets morning light. You could put your recliner here. Papa, and this big one in the back, that's perfect for Mama. It's quiet. Away from the street." They were assigning my bedrooms like they were moving in next week. Jethro chuckled. "And where's Miss Eudora gonna sleep?" Malis said, smooth as butter. "We're working on an assisted living situation. She'll be comfortable, like a dog bed." I felt the words land in my chest cold and heavy. My hands tightened on that towel till the seams squeaked. I stepped into the hallway. The old light made their faces yellow, sharp, every shadow meaner. Malis turned, that little smirk playing on her mouth. Half victory, half pity. That smile told me everything. In her head, this house was already hers. Rafe stood behind her, silent, shoulders slumped. He looked at me like I was an obstacle instead of his mother. "Can we not do this tonight?" he sighed. Something inside me clicked. Quiet doesn't mean weak. It means calculating. I watched her point into my bedroom, saying, "Mom, this room's got such nice air circulation. You'll sleep great in here." Indira nodded, already claiming the space. That's when I knew this was no visit. This was reconnaissance. I didn't argue. I didn't cry. I folded that dish towel, laid it on the counter, and made a decision. I might be old, but I am not invisible. I whispered to myself, "Not me. Not tonight." Because if they were planning my goodbye party in my own hallway, they just forgot one thing. I'm still alive, and I own this house. The house was too quiet after they'd all paraded down my hallway, voices fading into the night. You ever notice how silence can feel heavier than noise? That was my kitchen right then, full of leftovers and something bitter in the air. Rafe sat at the end of the table, eyes on his phone, pretending not to see me watching him. Melis folded her hands, like she was leading a meeting, not sitting in her mother-in-law's house. "We're all just trying to help here. Eudora," she said, smiling with her lips but not her eyes. "Don't make this embarrassing for yourself." That sentence hit me like a slap wrapped in lace. Don't embarrass yourself means don't resist. We've already decided. I looked right at her, steady as ever, and said, "I didn't ask for help, baby. I asked for respect." Rafe sighed, still scrolling. "Can we not make this a scene tonight?" he muttered, like I was a child acting out in church. I studied his face, the same face I kissed goodnight when he was small, and realized he wouldn't stand between me and the woman next to him. Not tonight. Maybe never again. Then she pulled a manila folder from that oversized tote of hers. It wasn't a purse. It was a briefcase in disguise. She slid papers toward me like she was delivering mail. "Routine documents," she said lightly. "Power of attorney, health proxy, the usual. So we can act fast if something happens." I didn't touch them. "Act fast for what?" "For your benefit," she said, "in case you get confused again." Again. That word echoed. "When exactly did I get confused?" I asked. Her smile sharpened. "Last week, when you mixed up your pills, I told Pastor Green we were worried." I felt heat crawl up my neck. "That's a lie, and you know it?" She shrugged. "You must have forgotten." And I looked down at those pages, neat, official, full of boxes where my signature should go. Her name was first, not Rafe's, hers. She'd placed herself in charge of my body and my money with one stack of copy paper confidence. "You're organized," she explained, "and he's forgetful. We all know that." I said nothing. My silence stretched until it filled the whole room. Indira reached out like she was soothing a child. "Honey, you shouldn't have to worry about bills and stairs. We can take care of this place for you." I looked up slow. Take care of it. Or take it. Her cheeks stiffened. "Peachwood has great reviews," she said, too quickly. "They've got a shuttle, activities." "Peachwood?" I interrupted. "Yathnew, what's that?" The silence that followed told me everything. They'd already picked the place. Without me, without a conversation. My son rubbed his temples. "Mama, please, we were just trying not to upset you." That's how betrayal sounds in polite company. Like they're apologizing for your feelings while planning your eviction. I asked softly. "And what happens to my house while I'm over there playing bingo?" Nobody spoke until Rafe finally said, "Mom, this place is basically ours anyway. We'll handle it." That word, ours, landed like a brick. I felt something inside me shift, not break, harden. I smiled then, not a friendly one, the kind of smile old women wear when we've already decided what comes next. "Well," I said, "that's mighty thoughtful of you. Let me sleep on it." They took that as surrender, gathered their things, kissed my cheek like they hadn't just gutted me in my own kitchen. When the door closed, I sat a while, listening to the crickets outside. Then I stood, slow but steady, and went to my bedroom. I pulled out my late husband's old accordion file. Deeds, insurance, receipts, everything with my name in ink. People lie easy, but paper tells the truth. That night, I wasn't scared anymore. I was planning. The sun wasn't up yet when I opened my front door. The air in Savannah carried that thick, early morning weight that sticks to your skin like an old worry. I took my time, folding every paper into my tote. The deed, tax receipts, mortgage payoff, proof of my life, every one of them. That canvas tote had history. I used to pack Rafe's Little League snacks in it the year he hit his first home run. Now it held my survival kit. My fingers shook a little, not from fear, but from the knowing. They were writing a version of me that didn't get a say. If that story grew legs, I'd be erased before I could shout. So I didn't leave a note, didn't call, didn't ask permission. I locked the door, looked at my house, and whispered, I am not going quietly. The steering wheel felt rough under my palms. The highway was empty, the marsh grass bending low, Spanish moss drooping like tired angels. Funny how the sky stays the same even when your life's on fire. I wasn't driving to ask for pity. I was driving to figure out how to fight back without them ever seeing the punch coming. Tessa Quinlan's office sat behind a gas station near Richmond Hill, one of those places you'd miss if you blinked. The kind of place where the paint peels, but the work gets done right. Inside smelled like paper, coffee, and authority. Tessa looked up from her desk, gray hair pulled tight, glasses on a chain, sharp eyes that missed nothing. Who's trying to move you out of your house? She said before I even sat down. That question nearly cracked me open. I handed her my stack, the deed, the folder Maylise tried to make me sign. She says it's just in case of emergency, I murmured. Tessa didn't blink. No, ma'am, that's not in case. That's as soon as she gets your signature. That's the kind of paper that moves your voice out of the room. It felt like a weight in my stomach. I'd been humiliated, sure, but this was different. This was danger written in legal ink. I told her how Maylise spread lies in church, saying I mixed up pills, that she and Rafe were stepping in. I could still hear her sweet little tone. Sugar over poison. Tessa leaned back, arms crossed. That's how they do it. They build confusion like a wall. Once that's up, every decision gets made for you. It's called elder financial coercion. Abuse? I asked. From my own son? She nodded. Happens more than you'd believe. Good sons, decent daughters. The minute there's property, their morals start melting. They call it help. The law calls it theft. Her words sliced through the fog in my head. I sat there listening to the hum of her fan, realizing this wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a plan. And if I didn't move, they'd finish it. Tessa said, You want to make sure your name stands tall before theirs touches a line of ink. I can draft a living trust in your name alone. Seal the house under your control and record it today. I nodded, my voice steady. Do it. She typed fast, keys snapping like gunfire. Next, I'll draft a no trespass notice. Anyone tries to move in, Maylise's parents or her friends, you hand them this. It's legal. They cross that line again. It's trespassing. I felt something rise inside me. Not rage, but relief. For the first time since that night, I wasn't just surviving, I was steering. Tessa kept typing. We'll file a preliminary report with Adult Protective Services too. Not because you're a victim, because we're drawing a line in ink. You came in first. That means if they try to flip this story, the record says otherwise. I looked at her, studying that calm face. They thought I'd sign because I love my son. Tessa smiled faintly, then love him enough to teach him accountability. When she printed the papers, I could hear the machine whine like a warning bell. She slid them into a new folder and said, This is your proof. Don't lose it. I tucked it into my tote. The weight felt different now. Solid. Protective. When I stepped back outside, the sun had climbed over the trees, gold light spilling over the marsh. The same world, but not the same woman walking in it. Yesterday, I was the story they were writing. Today, I was the editor holding the pen. I started the car, rolled down the window, and let that damp air hit my face. Somewhere behind me, my son thought he was saving me. He had no idea I was saving myself. "They want to fight," I whispered. "They just don't know what kind yet." I heard tires crunch on my driveway and thought it was the mail truck. It wasn't. I looked out through the lace curtain and saw Malis stepping out of her SUV like she was starring in a commercial for Victory. Behind her came Indira and Jethro, each hauling rolling luggage and a plastic storage bin full of folded towels and Lysol wipes. They weren't visiting. They were moving in. I stood there a moment, just watching. Nobody had called. Nobody asked if I was home or if it was a good time. They'd skipped straight to the end of the story, the part where I was already gone. Malis caught sight of me in the window and smiled that same little crooked grin I'd seen the night she walked through my hallway measuring rooms with her eyes. That smile said she believed my house had already changed owners. Then came Rafe, pulling up slow behind them, hands in his pockets, no luggage, no backbone either. He looked like a man showing up to sign something he hadn't read. I thought, they planned this. Middle of the afternoon, broad daylight. People don't do shameful things when the sun's up unless they've convinced themselves it's righteous. I opened the door before they could knock. The heat hit me first, thick and unforgiving. The second thing was Indira's voice. "Lord, it's warm. We're just gonna set our things down in the back bedroom. Sweetheart." Sweetheart. That word landed like a mosquito bite, small but poisonous. I didn't move. I stood in the doorway, one hand on the frame, blocking entry. "You can leave those bags right there. Indira," I said her name plain, no sugar, no title. She blinked hard, surprised. Malis's smile faltered a bit, but she kept her voice sweet. "Eudora, we're only trying to make this easy on you. I brought fresh linens." Rafe shifted his weight. "Mama, don't start, okay? Let's do this calm." I turned toward him, voice even. "Then stop acting like I passed away and nobody told me." He looked down at the porch rail, cheeks tightening. For the first time, I saw something that looked like shame flicker through him. The air between us thickened. The cicadas were screaming in the trees. I let the silence stretch until I saw Malis start to fidget. Then I reached into my tote and pulled out the envelope I'd prepared. On the front, in my neat cursive, it said, "Welcome. Before you bring one sock in my house," I said, "read this." She gave a short laugh, all confidence. "Eudora, what is this? A note?" She tore it open right there on the porch. Her face changed before she even reached the second page. Inside was a copy of the trust Tessa helped me file, placing my home entirely under my name. There was also a signed statement that any attempt to relocate me without consent had been pre-reported to Adult Protective Services. And right under that, a no trespass notice naming Malis, Indira, and Jethro personally. Malis's mouth went thin. Indira leaned over her shoulder, read Adult Protective Services, and stepped back like the paper had burned her. Jethro muttered, "Now, wait a damn," then caught himself, remembering who might be listening. I could feel eyes on us, Mrs. Devine across the street, pretending to water her azaleas. Good. Let them see. I spoke steady, clear. "You are not moving into my house. I am not moving out of my house. I am not signing your papers. And if you so much as set a pillowcase past this porch, I will call APS and the police. and I will use every one of your names." I looked at each of them, Melis, Indira, Jethro, saying their names like a sermon. Rafe whispered, "Mama, why are you doing this?" I met his eyes, calm as still water. "Because you were about to do it to me." No one moved. The cicadas stopped for a beat. Even the wind seemed to pause. Melis folded the paper, slow, like she was trying to figure out who she was in this new version of the story. That's when it hit her. I wasn't the old woman she could talk over anymore. I was the homeowner who had receipts, signatures, and the law already on speed dial. They turned back toward the car, mumbling excuses about miscommunication. I didn't answer. I just stood there, tall and still, the way a person stands when the storm finally passes and the roof's still holding. When they were gone, I closed the door, leaned against it, and let myself breathe. The house was quiet again, but not the same kind of quiet as before. This one belonged to me. Sunday morning sunlight streamed through my curtains, gold and calm, but I knew peace was only pretending. I got dressed for church like always, hat, gloves, pearl earrings, but something in me braced for a chill I couldn't name. The porch scene from yesterday had burned itself into memory, but I still thought that was the end of it. Turns out the porch was only the prelude. When I walked into church, the air changed. People who'd hugged me for 30 years suddenly turned into strangers. Sister Green waved from across the pews but kept her distance. The deacon's wife turned her back mid-smile. Pastor gave me one of those too careful greetings. "So good to see you, Miss Eudora." But no handshakes followed. I could feel words buzzing through the air like gnats. I caught pieces. "It's just sad. Her son's trying his best. You know how the mind goes at that age." That phrase, "at that age," hit like a stone. I stopped mid-aisle and realized they were talking about me, repeating Melis's poison. I'd been recast as a fragile relic losing touch with reality, and the town was eating it up with polite pity. In a Southern church, once they start praying for you, they stop listening to you. Prayer becomes a polite gag. I sat through the service in silence, hymnal open, voice still. You don't fight gossip with fury, it only proves them right. I let them stare, let them whisper. On the outside, I looked calm. On the inside, I was already drafting my next move. After service, Rafe found me in the parking lot, standing under that old oak where I used to wait for him after Sunday school. Melis lingered behind him, pretending to chat with Sister Ruth, but her eyes were watching every twitch of my mouth. "Mom," he said softly, "people think you're mad at everybody." I didn't blink. People think that because somebody's been feeding them lies. "You gonna tell me who?" He sighed, shifting his weight. "Melis just told them you've been stressed. She didn't mean any harm. They're just worried about you." "Son," I said, locking eyes with him, "don't confuse worry with control. They don't want to help me, they want me quiet." He flinched, like the truth finally found a soft spot. But he didn't defend me. He just looked away. And in that moment, I knew I couldn't save him from his own cowardice. I tell you this straight. That's when I stopped trying to protect his feelings. I'd spent too many years cushioning his mistakes. I was done treating my love like currency. By afternoon, I went to the grocery store for milk and bread. Simple errands, grounding rituals. But small towns travel faster than gossip itself. I turned down the cereal aisle and nearly walked into Indira and Jethro Lorne, their shopping cart conveniently full, but their eyes hungry for drama. "Eudora, honey," Indira said too loud. "We're so glad you're out and about. We were worried after the episode." I tilted my head, giving her just enough rope. "Episode? You know," she faltered, The confusion, the pills. I cut her off, voice clear enough for the nearby cashier to hear. Confusion? You mean your confusion about whose name's on my house deed? Because mine's still crystal clear on paper. The couple behind us froze mid-step, watching. Jethro tugged at his collar. Indira flushed deep red, muttered something about misunderstandings, and steered her cart away. I walked slow, steady. That's how you handle a rumor, I told myself. Make it ridiculous and it dies laughing. That night, I brewed tea and laid my documents on the kitchen table like soldiers ready for battle. 3 letters. The first to Pastor Green, polite, factual, with copies of notarized proof showing my ownership and sound mind. The second to Adult Protective Services, confirming I was aware of continued harassment tied to attempted coercion. The third to a lawyer friend from my choir, a quiet woman who owed me a favor. I sealed each one with my initials. Gossip fades, paper remains. I'd learned that the hard way. You don't fight rumors with noise. You fight them with evidence. I could finally breathe knowing the ink was my armor. Just as I started to relax, headlights flashed through the curtains. Not Rafe's car, smaller, white, government plates. Then came a knock, 3 short, 1 long. I opened the door. A woman stood there, crisp blazer, badge glinting. Miss Grayson, I'm with Adult Protective Services. We received a report you might be in distress. I smiled, slow and cold. I bet you did. When I opened the door, the woman standing there wasn't some nosy neighbor. She was official. Badge on her belt, tablet in hand, hair pulled tight. Miss Grayson, she said, I'm with Adult Protective Services. We received a report that you may be confused or in distress. Are you safe tonight? I didn't blink. Come on in, baby. Bring your notepad. My tone was soft but firm, the kind of voice that makes people think they're in safe hands while I'm actually setting the table for war. She hesitated, then stepped inside. I led her to the kitchen, the same table where Melis once tried to make me sign my life away. Not tonight. Tonight. It was mine. She asked the routine questions about medication, bills, groceries. I answered each one neat and direct, pulling open drawers, showing receipts, labeled pill cases, utilities paid early. I could see her eyes scanning everything, matching what she'd been told to what she was seeing. The 2 pictures didn't match. When you're old in this country, I told the audience, you get graded every time someone with a clipboard walks in your house. You better treat every smile like a test. Then I saw it, that flicker of surprise. She'd been expecting frail confusion, maybe even chaos. What she got was a woman with every duck in a row and her chin high. Once she finished her checklist, I opened my folder, the one Tessa Quinlan helped me build, and slid it across the table like I'd been waiting all day for this moment. Before you go any further, I said, note this. My property is held in a living trust under my name, and here's the notarized statement confirming I'm of sound mind. You'll also find documentation that I have not requested relocation, nor have I consented to any power of attorney arrangement. Her brows lifted. She wasn't used to someone turning the audit back on her. I continued, calm as a lake before dawn. Here are the drafts my daughter-in-law, Melis Rorden, tried to slip in front of me. Look at that line. Full financial authority, 0 oversight. She skimmed the pages, then looked up. And they asked you to sign this? They tried to make it look like care, I replied. But what they call help, the law calls theft. The air shifted. She realized this wasn't a safety check anymore. It was a deposition. Then she asked, would you like me to call your son so we can confirm the details? I smiled. Oh, I'd love that. She dialed, Put the phone on speaker. Rafe answered. Casual. Hey, everything okay? This is Ms. Collier with Adult Protective Services, she said. I'm here at your mother's home following a report that she may be in distress. The pause on the other end was long enough to count the ticks of the wall clock. Then his voice tightened. Oh, yeah, we were just worried. She's been overwhelmed lately. I leaned forward. Rafe, I said clearly. Tell her which part of me is overwhelmed. The part that pays the bills or the part that refuses to sign your wife's papers. He stammered. Mom, come on. And then I heard Malis grab the phone. Mrs. Grayson is paranoid, she said sharply. She's been lashing out. We're just trying to keep her safe. I kept my tone honey smooth. Malis, sweetheart, please spell your last name for the nice lady so she can record it properly. Silence. Then the faint scratching of pen on paper. The APS worker wrote it down slow, deliberate. That sound, I told the audience, that's the sound of a lie turning into evidence. When the call ended, Miss Newell Collier looked at me differently, not like a case, but like a colleague. Do you feel threatened by these individuals? She asked. Yes, I said, spiritually, financially, and physically if they ever try to cross my porch again. She nodded, filled out her form, and slid it toward me. Please sign to confirm you're competent, safe, and wish to remain independent. I signed slow, steady. My hand didn't tremble once. She tore off the copy and handed me her card. If anyone shows up uninvited, call 911 and then call me. I'll make sure it's on record. I walked her to the door, opened it wide like I was seeing off a guest, not an investigator. She thanked me for my time. I looked her dead in the eye and said, they wanted the state to come get me. The state just became my witness. She smiled, not out of pity, but respect. When the door closed, I stood there with the card in my hand, feeling something I hadn't in months, command. They thought they'd summoned help to bury me. Instead, they brought a notary to my victory. 2 days after the APS woman left my kitchen, I got a call from Rafe. His voice was soft, polite, that fake calm people use when they're planning something. Mama, he said, can you please come to a little sit down? Folks think you're mad at us and it's embarrassing. Embarrassing. That was his word. Not wrong, not hurtful, not illegal, just embarrassing. The meeting wasn't at my house, but at the church fellowship hall, neutral ground. That meant they were expecting witnesses. I could already smell the strategy. Make me look emotional in front of polite company. But I've lived long enough to know presentation beats accusation. So I put on my pressed navy dress, pearl earrings, low heels, and lipstick the color of quiet power. When they try to call you unstable, you show up radiant. I walked in to see a long, folding table set up like a committee hearing. Malis sat in the middle, hands folded as if she ran the place. Indira was beside her, pretending to wipe tears that hadn't fallen. Jethro leaned back like a silent bodyguard. Rafe looked smaller than I remembered, tired, drawn, not yet ashamed. And at the end of the table sat Pastor Green, which told me this wasn't about family at all. This was about reputation management. That's when I realized I'd already won something. People only stage damage control when they're scared. The truth is walking free. Malis spoke first, her tone sweet as syrup. We just want what's best for Miss Eudora, she said. She's been very agitated lately. She threatened us on her porch. We're honestly afraid she might hurt herself. Indira chimed in with trembling hands. We tried to move in to keep her company. Pastor, she slammed the door in our faces. We were just trying to be family. Then Rafe leaned forward, voice low and tired. We can't keep doing this. Mama, you refuse help. You yell at people who love you. I don't know what else to do. Listening to your own child accuse you of madness is not fire. It's frost. It slides under your ribs and makes your breath short. I sat still, hands on my lap, and waited. Pastor finally said, "Sister Grayson, is there anything you'd like to share?" I looked straight at him. "Pastor," I said quietly, "before I speak, are you here for truth or reputation? Because those are two different meetings." The room froze. Southerners don't like their motives named out loud. Even Melis's smile twitched. Then I reached into my tote and laid out 3 neat stacks of paper, one for Pastor, one for Rafe, one for Melis. "These," I said, "are the documents y'all slid across my kitchen table last week. This line right here says I lose control of my accounts and medical care unless you approve. You meaning Melis, not my son, not me." "You..." Pastor's eyes narrowed. He hadn't seen that part before. I continued. "This second document is my official statement to Adult Protective Services. It says I never asked to move, never agreed to relocate, and never mixed up medication. That rumor came from Melis. You signed your name to that lie, didn't you?" Melis tried to smile, but it came out crooked. "I just expressed concern," she said. "No," I replied, voice even. "You expressed ownership. There's a difference." Then I turned to Rafe. "And you, my son. You sat there while she called me incompetent in front of half this town. For a house you didn't buy." He looked at the table, jaw working, eyes red. Pastor cleared his throat. "Brother Rafe, Sister Melis, you understand you can't take authority over a competent adult? That's not care. That's control." That moment shifted the air. When a Southern pastor names something control, it stops being family drama and becomes moral failure, Indira whispered. "We were only trying to make her safe." "Safer for who?" Pastor asked. She didn't answer. I folded my hands, calm as Sunday morning. "From now on," I said, "all communication goes through APS or my lawyer. You don't come to my door. You don't speak for me, and you don't touch a single thing that belongs to me." Nobody argued. Even the ceiling fan sounded like it was holding its breath. After Pastor dismissed us, I walked toward the parking lot beside Rafe. The night was heavy, magnolia scent thick in the air. He stopped near my car. "Mama," he said softly, "you called APS on me." I looked at him. "No, baby, I called APS for me." His voice cracked. "You really think I'd hurt you?" I met his eyes, the same eyes I once saw light up at Christmas lights, and said, "Rafe, you already did. You just didn't think anybody would call it by its name." He stood there, silent, shoulders slumped. I didn't reach to hug him. That's how women like me lose the lesson. We comfort the wrong person. So I got in my car, started the engine, and drove home under a sky that finally felt open again. For the first time in months, I didn't feel small. I wasn't crazy or angry or old. I was free. And they knew it. After that meeting at the church, I didn't waste time crying or praying for change. I picked up the phone and called Tessa Quinlan. She didn't even need me to explain much. She just said, "Eudora, it's time to get your ducks in a row." The next day, she set me up with a property attorney, a woman named Colleen Masters. Smart, steady, no nonsense. The kind of woman who'd been underestimated all her life and learned to weaponize that. Colleen listened, took notes, and nodded the way people do when they've seen this movie before. She drafted 3 documents while I sipped her office coffee. The first, a cease and desist letter against Melis Rorden, Indira Lorne, and Jethro Lorne for harassment and defamation. The second, a no trespass order naming all 3, notarized and filed with the county clerk. The third was personal, a limited contact clause for my son. It didn't disown him. It simply made clear that he could not discuss my medical or financial affairs with anyone without written consent. When she slid the papers toward me, I signed each one with a steady hand. "You don't always cut your blood off," I told her. "Sometimes you just take the knife out their hand." Colleen smiled, said, "That's the quote of the day." Before I left, I asked her to let me know when the process server would deliver the papers. I wanted to be home when they landed. "This ain't revenge," I told her. "This is boundary." Saturday afternoon came hot and loud, the kind of Savannah heat that sticks to your skin like syrup. I sat on my porch with a fan and a glass of tea, pretending to watch the street. I saw their cars before I heard them. Rafe's silver SUV first, then the Lorne Woods beige sedan creeping behind. They thought they were arriving for a talk. I stayed seated. When the process server walked up, neat shirt, clipboard in hand, he said, "Are you Malis Warden?" She nodded, irritated. He handed her an envelope. Same with Indira, same with Jethro. Official, civil, final. Malis tore hers open right there, scanning the first lines, then reading louder as if that would change the words. "Cease and desist. Defamation. Adult Protective Services complaint. Trespass order." Her face turned red. "You called the state on us," she snapped. I answered without raising my voice. "I warned you. I told you I'd make it expensive to keep disrespecting me." Indira stepped forward, trying to sound maternal. "Eudora, this is family business. You didn't have to do this in front of everyone." I gestured toward the street, where 2 neighbors had come out pretending to water their plants. "You brought it to everyone," I said. "When you told this town I was crazy over a house you didn't buy." I didn't shout. I didn't flinch. I just watched them realize the power they'd lost. Rafe stood by his car, silent, jaw tight. When the others stormed off, he stayed. "Finally," he said, "Mama, you made me look like a monster." I walked down 2 steps, close enough to smell the cologne I bought him one Christmas long ago. "Baby," I said softly, "I didn't make you look like anything. I let people see." He swallowed hard. "You really gonna treat me like some thief off the street?" "You walked up here and tried to take what I bled for," I replied. "Tell me what word you'd rather I use." He couldn't answer. I laid my hand on his arm. Just a touch. Not forgiveness. A marker between what was and what would never be again. "You can come back when you can talk to me like I'm still alive, not before, and don't bring anyone with luggage." He blinked fast, trying not to cry. I didn't rescue him from that. When they finally drove away, dust rising, tempers flaring, I turned the key in my lock and walked back inside. My house felt quiet again, like it had exhaled. I sat at my kitchen table, poured another glass of sweet tea, and just listened to the stillness. "I am 70 years old," I said out loud. "I am not helpless, I am not confused, I am planted." Then I called APS, documented everything just like the card instructed. I called Pastor Green, too. "It's handled," I told him. "You don't have to run cover for them anymore." When the sun set, I stood at my window, looking over my porch, and thought about how many women lose their homes because someone convinces them love means surrender. Not me. Not anymore. Listen to me, I say now to whoever's watching. They'll call it love while they're moving you out of your own life. Don't wait for someone to defend you. Document. Speak plain. Keep your keys. I still love my son. I always will. But that love is mine now, not theirs to weaponize. I didn't lose my home. They lost access to it. There's a difference. As the cicadas sang through the savannah night, a single knock echoed on my front door. I froze, glass of tea in hand. It wasn't fear this time. It was knowing. Someone had crossed that line again. I whispered, "Lord, give me strength," and turned the knob. Then everything went silent.